So I want to welcome you all who are joining us, who are local to Bradford District Craven, and you who've joined us from further afield. My name's Therese Patton. I'm the place lead for our partnership, and I don't think there's any more exciting way to start a Monday than to open this amazing festival. This is the third year of our festival, and it's just gone from strength to strength. It's being developed and designed, and we will run it with the support of our staff and people who have autistic people, and they will come and be open and transparent and honest. And I'm grateful for you for doing that. We've got people who are joining us. Put your cameras on if you feel comfortable. Turn them off if you don't feel comfortable. That's absolutely fine. We are recording the session. So if you have to drop off or if you haven't been able to join us and you booked on, we can make sure that that is available to you. So our fantastic pair are going to introduce themselves and their organisation in a minute. They're going to speak to us, talk to us in an interactive way for a little bit, and then we'll have a Q&A that Shaq and I will facilitate. So if you feel comfortable, put your hand up if you've got a question. If you are a little bit shy, you don't want to ask a question, just pop it in the chat and we will make sure that we read it out so that our colleagues Francesca and Gabby can answer your question. I think that's all I wanted to say, and I will hand over to you, Francesca, first. Thanks, Francesca.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Teresa. Hi, everyone. Nice to virtually meet you all. Thank you to NHS Airedale Trust for giving us this opportunity to be part of this wonderful festival, Connected in Ability. I've been looking at some of the previous events that you've done, and it looks like a really informative and inclusive event, which we're really, really happy to be part of. So thank you. We are a little company based in Halifax, so not too far away, still in West Yorkshire, but we are focused very much on nationwide, basically to reduce unemployment rates of the autistic community here in the UK. We are an offshoot of a Belgian organisation. Actually, the organisation was started in 2020 in Belgium, and has basically spoke to us. We had a vested interest in the mission of Automatic, which is to focus on the unemployment rate in the autistic community, to harness and celebrate autism strengths, and to plug skills gaps in our country, in our economy, basically, where autistic people can really thrive and have really strong skill sets. So that is a little bit about us and why we're here. We are obviously very interested and very passionate about disability empowerment and the movement. And yeah, we basically just want to help as many people find work as possible and support them into work. So if we could just share the screen. Have you got it, Gabby, please?
Yep.
We'll try and avoid death by PowerPoint as much as we can, but we
yeah.
So yeah, that's it. Fine. So yeah, so we can go on to slide 2 now, really, if that's okay. So to start off with, a definition, obviously, is really important. You know, what is autism? We're specifically focused on autism as an organisation, but neurodiversity generally as well. So autism is defined as a lifelong developmental disability which affects how people communicate and interact with the world. Another definition that I'm particularly keen on, it's basically, it's a spectrum condition, so it affects people in different ways. So it is a very unique disability or condition, and each person is different. So at the bottom of this slide, if you can see the saying, if you've met one autistic person, you have met one autistic person. We try and break down the stigmas that everybody has of autism, because it presents so differently in each individual. So generally, though, the patterns of autism traits and characteristics is hyperfocus and special interest. So when an autistic person is in the zone, the productivity is incredible. They can really hyperfocus and block out all noise and really do their task in a very impressive and productive way, especially if they're super interested in what they're doing. Autistic people love routine, generally don't like change. So that kind of the structure, is very, very important. Repetitive behaviour is another pattern that we see, and the enjoyment of repetitive work. So this is something that we focus on when we're looking for employment for some people. Communication differences. Again, something that we really build awareness around with organisations and companies. So things like eye contact, avoiding eye contact. Some people prefer written communication to spoken communication. Some people prefer to do Teams meetings rather than in person. And then literal communication. So actually how you communicate with someone. A lot of autistic people generally tend to take things literally. So we have to kind of avoid idioms and metaphors and things like that. Another one that can affect a lot of autistic people is sensory sensitivity, or they have sensory sensitivity. So super sensitive to sound, light, noise, texture and smells. I know somebody, a family friend, who actually feels physical pain when there's a loud noise. So that but again, every person's different, and it's about working with each person and understanding what their sensory sensitivity can be. So to talk generally about neurodiversity as well, because a lot of autistic people have coexisting conditions. And again, that's why the individualized approach is so important when you're speaking to someone who is autistic. So we have extreme versions of extroversion in some people. So very extroverted, very boisterous and confident in appearance. Also introversion. So we do have a lot of people that are a bit more introverted and not as gregarious, I suppose is the way to describe it. Autism, obviously, we've just defined. And ADD or ADHD is the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or attention deficit disorder. About 30 to 35% of the people that we register for work have autism and ADHD. Epilepsy we see is quite prevalent. Dyslexia, dyscalculia and dyspraxia. So dyslexia, obviously with written communication and words, they have difficulty processing. Dyscalculia is more numbers based, and then dyspraxia is a physical condition. We do have a lot of people who have OCD as well. And PTSD seems to present a lot in autistic women, autistic females. So high anxiety from previous experiences, either in employment or in their personal lives. We can see some people that are highly gifted, so very, very high IQ, just in the neurotypical population as well, just the same. And then obviously linked to anxiety, and we do have, you can see a lot of depression based on previous experiences and linked to the PTSD. So there's lots of different coexisting conditions. And like I said, if you look at each person, you work with them in an individualized approach, then you can offer the right support and the right workplace adjustments to fully support them in role. So some statistics, just to add, I suppose, a bit of context. So around 1 in 70 people in the UK are thought to be autistic or are diagnosed autistic, which is around 1 million people. This data is still probably inaccurate because more and more children are being diagnosed. So in the US, the current statistics is 1 in 36 children are being diagnosed. So there's more awareness around it, around autism and neurodiversity. So I think that this number will keep changing year on year as more people are diagnosed and more people disclose also. Only 3 in 10 autistic people of working age are employed in the UK specifically, despite 8 in 10 wanting to work. So there is a huge gap there that needs to be bridged, and obviously this is what all of the work is focused on. And it is actually the highest unemployment rate of all disabled communities. It's just over 50% of disabled people are in employment in the UK. So the number of autistic people that are unemployed is obviously a lot higher than that. Autistic people have the highest unemployment rate and also the largest pay gap as well. Only 10% of autistic people receive employment support, despite 53% wanting the support. So what we focus on as an organisation is providing that wraparound support for people, not just to find work, but also when they're in work. So this is the education piece that needs to be brought and rolled out to companies and organisations that are looking to be more inclusive and more diverse. Offer that support, offer that understanding to people, and you will see a much better retention rate, much more happiness in work, and then, obviously better productivity, better success rate. For us, we have a team of specialist autism employment coaches as part of our offering to our candidates and also to the companies, so that they're always there to kind of provide guidance and understanding, which obviously has a massive benefit to people. Studies have found that neurodivergent teams are 30% more productive than teams that don't have neurodivergent employees within them. This was a study that was carried out by Deloitte about a year ago, and obviously we try and explain this to organisations and companies, because if they can't see the bigger picture, then they don't prioritise it from a recruitment perspective. We'll go into more about why later on in the slideshow. So our mission really to have the biggest impact is to bring employers together with autistic talent to build a successful employment community and to enable people in the autistic community to make progress in life. So we bring the value to organisations by celebrating where people in the autistic community can really, really bring a skill set to companies, because at the end of the day, a lot of companies want to do social good, but they also need to see the value in bringing in high numbers into the organisation. So we really we celebrate autism strengths. We very much focus on the social model rather than the medical model, whereas building an inclusive society, an inclusive community, which then will obviously bring success. But ultimately, as an impact first organisation, we want people not just to have jobs, but to make progress in life. That is our biggest passion, and I think that's what everybody today at this event is wanting to talk about and celebrate and to really focus on. We want people to have financial security, financial independence. We see a lot of people that still live at home well into their adulthood, because that independence is something that they've never had, and that their family really are a bit nervous about allowing them to go into the big wide world without having that stability. We want to give people stability, and that's the ultimate aim of what our model is about. So we focus on we call it a talent pyramid. So when we speak to organisations, we look at the skill set of people in the community, and the top of the pyramid are those that can find work pretty much on their own. They can navigate a career without much support, which is fantastic. And those I know a lot of people I've worked with that are neurodiverse, and they've worked fully on site, so full time and on site, and they've managed to have a fantastic career, done really well. We focus on the next level down of people that have slightly higher support needs, but are pretty much the forgotten. Basically, the rest of the community, they're not supported, they're not recognised. They basically there's too many barriers in the workplace for them to enter the workplace or even to go for a job interview, because the job interview, the job descriptions completely they basically don't focus on a diverse set of candidates, because they basically, they're not written with neurodivergent employees in mind. So these people tend to have never been given an opportunity but have a skill set. So they may have a degree, they may not have a degree, but they have a very valuable skill set. We also, people in this community, some have experienced autistic burnout, which is a huge problem. We do see a lot of people that have that, and those are people that have worked but haven't been supported in role with their autism in mind. So they have been expected to work 60, 70-hour weeks. They have been, demands have been put on them that are unrealistic, so they've had to do customer facing work, hold big team meetings face to face where it just brings their anxiety up too much. And autistic burnout is a serious thing. It's a prolonged state of exhaustion, basically, which gives decreased functioning that can affect people long term. So a lot of people can be out of work for years when they've experienced burnout. So we try and support those people back into the workplace and give them the relevant support they need. So yeah, and that is basically the type of people. Now the third level down are people in the community that have high support needs and may struggle to get the work that we try and find people for kind of big organisations.
So autism strengths, yeah, there's many of them, and what we're trying to do is we want to use autism strength to plug the skills gap within the economy. So matching those two things together. So often an autistic person might have good attention to detail, which is really useful in roles such as data quality. They're often, they've got really good problem solving. They have different ways of thinking. So, for example, if you've got a neurotypical team and, you sort of come into a standstill, you're struggling with, new ideas, to bring someone in that is autistic or neurodivergent will give you, might give you that solution and more sort of innovative, different way of thinking and give you that different approach. Pattern recognition, again, is another one that is really useful in data. It could be, good for spotting patterns, but also, spotting mistakes in data sets and things like that as well. Honesty and a strong sense of justice is another, really good strength. Generally you will always get honesty out of that person. It, helps obviously to build that trust between you and an employee as well. Loyal, often autistic people are very loyal. Once they are in a role they enjoy, they will, ideally stay in that role for years and years and will be very loyal to you. Hyper focus is another really good strength. So when they're doing a task, they will be really focused on that task and that task alone. They will block out sort of any other distractions or anything else going on and just focus on the task at hand, which is really obviously beneficial to productivity for the company, the organization as a whole as well. Creativity, again, it sort of links to different ways of thinking, and being creative. And excellent memory. So I've got a really good example for this one. So often an autistic person will have an excellent memory. I'm not sure if anyone's seen that there was a video on YouTube, and it was basically a guy that they flew over sort of New York for 45 minutes in a helicopter. They gave him 45 minutes sort of looking at the skyline. He came back and he basically drew the entire skyline of New York in massive detail, and it was completely accurate as well. So it's amazing, in terms of memory and things. That's a really good example. And again, it sort of links to sort of what Francesca said earlier, but expert in favourite topics. So again, if an autistic person does have a special interest or they are really interested in something, they will research and know that topic in great detail. So it could be anything. So for example, I have a lot of people that I speak to that are really interested in trains. I spoke to someone that's special interest was white goods, so particularly like washing machines they were really interested in. It could be Japanese culture, anime, things like that. So a few people's special interest has actually been autism as well. So I spoke to a girl who had been diagnosed later in life. I think she was in her 30s, and since she got her diagnosis, her special interest had become autism and researching and knowing everything about that. And sometimes people's special interest will also change. So some people will keep the same couple or one special interest all their life. Other people will go through periods where they will have special interest for maybe 6 months, 12 months, and then discover something new, and it can also change as well. So barriers into employment. So unfortunately there can be quite a few. So lack of support and understanding is one. interviews are a big barrier. Often, just because someone is bad at an interview doesn't mean they're bad at the job. Working environment is another one. Differences in communication and social understanding, understanding social norms and cues, and working full-time hours. So removing barriers. So there's lots of different ways that we can do this. So for support, educating yourself and employees is a massive one. So again, training, not just training sort of once and thinking that, that's it, you sort of know everything. It's continuous training and, refreshing that training as well. Also, asking the individual what adjustments would be best for them. As Francesca said earlier, every individual is different. Not everything will apply to every single person, and they will vary. Don't be afraid to ask the questions as well. So sometimes we're afraid of, maybe saying the wrong thing, so we won't ask that question, but without asking, we won't know, will we, what that person needs. And also just be approachable and respectful, once you build that trust as well. So for an autistic person, it can take a little bit longer to build trust, and they won't share, unless they have that trust there. So building the trust is a big thing in that respect. So interviews is another one. So as I mentioned, interviews are a big barrier, and often people get lots of interviews when they're looking for a job but never get past that interview stage. Now, that can be for lots of different reasons. It can be communication. It can be not having enough time to think in those situations. So there are quite a few things you could do to get the best out of someone in an interview. So sending interview questions ahead of time is such a big one. I know a lot of people in interviews, say that they like to get someone's sort of response, in the moment, but you're not actually getting the best out of a person by doing that. So sending interview questions ahead of time is really good because it gives someone that time to process and think about what they would say for each question. You can also let them know who is interviewing them. Again, it can be an anxiety thing. It can be quite nerve-wracking, the first time you meet someone. So letting them know who the job title will be interviewing them. Where you conduct interviews is a big one as well. So we always say conduct interviews in a quiet room with no distractions. So for example, an office or a room with a big glass window with loads of people walking past, where you can hear outside noise is just a big no-no. So, somewhere quiet with no windows and things like that would be best. Also, when you're sending information before the interview, sending the location of the interview is really useful. So that, ideally would include photos. So for example, photos of the building, maybe how to get there from the train station or local transport as well is always useful. And you can also consider alternative interviews. So you don't always need to do a face-to-face interview. So maybe a Teams call rather than in person. Is always useful. There is a point to make as well when we're saying consider other interviews. Some people may think telephone interview, but again, a lot of autistic people don't always like a telephone. They prefer a Teams call because they can see who they're speaking to. So, with being on camera. So working full-time hours, that is another barrier for some people. And the reason for this is that often it takes some autistic people just a little bit longer to decompress at the end of the day. So when we say full-time, that can, vary. It doesn't necessarily mean everyone wants to work 16 hours a week. It could be someone just wants to reduce that 40 hours, maybe down to 30 or 32 hours a week. So it's not too far off full-time. So yeah, consider if, that is a possibility. You can also look at any roles maybe where you could, job share that role. So for example, if you do need someone in 40 hours a week for that position, you could look at two people sharing that at 20 hours a week. So then that gives more people the opportunity and then they can work together and share that role. So working environment is a massive barrier and where a lot of people struggle as well. So that can be, the office environment. It could be, again, for sensory issues, and it could be lots of people, the noise, the lighting. So it could also be like the travel into work as well. That can be an anxiety for a lot of people. So what you can do is try and, make the working environment more friendly for people who are in the office. So again, avoid bright lighting and noisy spaces. We would always you can always offer equipment as well. So for example, noise cancelling headphones and things like that. We always say as well, allow regular breaks where needed. Sometimes people just might need to get up and have that, minute away from the desk. Also offer a quiet space again, if possible, where someone can go just to decompress and take that break. We always do say avoid hot desking. So again, that comes into people not really liking change, for example. So if someone can keep the same desk rather than switching desks, that is always ideal. And then any roles where you can allow someone to work from home, that sort of takes out a lot of the barriers for people who do have sensory issues, travel to work, and that will open sort of the pool of who you can hire as well, because there's a lot of people that only want to work from home. So any roles where you can do that, that will give a lot more accessibility to the role. Communication again is a big one, and where a lot of autistic people do struggle. So we always say, it can be very black and white for an autistic person. Don't leave things up to interpretation. So we always say provide clear and concise instructions and feedback. So say what you mean. Sometimes again, with the processing, it might take someone a little bit longer to answer a question. So allow them that time and don't interrupt them if they are thinking of an answer for a question. Again, some people prefer written communication. It might be verbal communication is where they struggle, but actually they're fantastic with communicating when it's written. So consider that where possible. And also, if you are doing video calls, for meetings, for example, potentially allow, the cameras to be switched off, because that often makes someone feel a lot more comfortable. Again, we say the best way of making these reasonable adjustments is to ask each individual what they want and need. Every person is different. These will not all apply for everyone. Some will apply for one and then other ones for a different person. So everyone is different. So always ask and have those discussions. So this is the model of how we work at Automatic. The reason that we're showing you this is because this is how we as an organisation break down those barriers and how we help companies be more inclusive to give autistic employees the best, for them to show their potential. So what we do is we get someone to register on our website. Once they've done that, they can refer. We get a lot of people referred from organisations or self-refer through the website. So once they have done that, we will organise the get to know you sessions. So I conduct those actually. We do them over a Teams video call. They can have someone on that call with them to make them feel more comfortable, as a lot of people may feel quite nervous when they've not met me before. So having someone there as an extra support really does help them. This is where we find out all about the individual. So we'll obviously discuss sort of past experiences. We discuss things that they enjoy, things they don't enjoy. We talk about any support that they will need, what their strengths are, what their skill set is, and how to best support them with things, how they prefer to communicate. Do they prefer, what type of tasks do they prefer? So that way then, when we are looking for roles, we can tell that company the best way to support that person and the best way to manage that individual as well. So once we've done that session, we then send them some online assessments just to see where their skill set is at the moment. And from that, this is when we can, recommend the best sort of courses for upskilling. So the reason we're quite big on upskilling, and we want to add that benefit to as many people as we can. We know a lot of people that we speak to often have not been given that chance, or they've struggled in education sort of setting, like school environment previously. So they may not have always gone on to get certain qualifications that they're actually really interested in. So for example, we have people that have learned to code themselves, but then doing a more detailed course, will improve them more to sort of the level where they are ready to go into a coding role, as an example. So we basically partner with a couple of different organisations where the upskilling is free. The courses are all free to do. So it's a variety of different courses, so things maybe more soft skills, but also things like data, AI, coding, like I mentioned, cybersecurity, just to name a few. So we want to give everyone as much benefit and and that skill set, so they are ready for employment. So the way we work as well is we are the employer. So the reason that we do that, well, there's several different reasons, but we offer wraparound support. We offer work coaching with sort of qualified work coaches that have experience. We also offer fully remote and part-time roles mainly. As I mentioned previously, these can be barriers into employment. So we know a lot of people, will mask all day in an office. They will struggle, like we said, like Francesca said, burnout can be a big thing. And again, that can be due to full-time hours. So part-time can take that away. It can also be to working in an office and masking. So everything we do is for the individual and to get the best out of that individual. And that's why we're the employer, so we can offer all that support to each individual. We also at Automatic have our own in-house platform. They can access support on here, and it also acts as an online community. So it's a little bit like a social media. They can have chats and speak to other Automatic colleagues as well. So even though they are working, fully remote, they are, part of a team at the organisation and also part of a team at Automatic to give that community feel as well. So our holistic approach is there to promote longevity and stability for autistic people in work, and also for the companies themselves as well. And this, as an end result, provide it gives more diverse workforce, a more resilient and also innovative workforce as well.
Francesca? Hi, back. Thank you, Gabby. So what we do and what we speak to organisations about to be more inclusive and to appeal to a more inclusive workforce is to look at their traditional way of hiring and to see what adjustments can be made. So what we do at Automatic is we call it job crafting. So we work with organisations where they have bottlenecks internally. So data bottlenecks, administrative bottlenecks, anything technical, the AAA offering or services that I'll just mention in a moment. But we look at highlighting, celebrating autism strengths, plugging the skills gaps. So we look at these technical or high volume administrative tasks. So job crafting, we're not filling an entire job role. We're crafting out parts of the job role that would suit an autistic employee, not to generalize, obviously each person's different, but we look at where the strengths are and we try and match them to the tasks, the bottlenecks, so to speak. So we craft the task. So it's very much a skills-based approach to recruitment. So looking at what skill sets you need, crafting the tasks. We also craft the relational aspects of the job. So those that have like the social interaction and the kind of stakeholder engagement sides of roles, we try and take that out where necessary to suit some people, and the environment in which the job occurs. So we look at generally looking at fully remote or hybrid if necessary, but 90% of the time we look at fully remote to suit people. So this leads to obviously better well-being, more job satisfaction, increased engagement, and higher levels of productivity. So a lot of people in the autistic community suffer burnout is when generally they get to work, they're so exhausted by, for example, the noise on the bus or the busyness of the public transport that they've had to take to get to work, and then they can't do their job properly. They experience anxiety. The hiring manager doesn't see what they are capable of, and so it falls down basically from there. So we craft and we work with each organisation to understand where we can really give people potential, and so they can see what their potential is basically. Next. just to give an example, I'm conscious of time. I know that that we're probably getting to our 30 minutes, or we have been 30 minutes and more. Just to give you a case study to show where job crafting has, really works, and where breaking down those barriers can really help someone flourish. This is Georgina. She works for Automatic. We're very, very grateful to have her. She's incredible, and she works at AstraZeneca as a CRM data specialist. Now, Georgina had suffered burnout and had quite serious PTSD from her previous employment, and she had been out of the job market for about 1.5 years when we first spoke to her. She had a degree at UCL in medical sciences, done really well, loved medical data, like absolutely loved it, like it was a serious passion of hers. But she'd just had a couple of jobs that weren't related to her field of study at all. So she'd worked for an events company, and then she'd also worked for another business doing admin work, basically. And in her previous role at the events company, she'd been, I think she'd experienced some difficult relationships at work, as in, they'd proved challenging for her. So she didn't feel comfortable enough to disclose her autism in a previous role. Unrealistic expectations had been put on her, and she suffered severe autistic burnout, basically. So hadn't been in the job market, had an incredible desire to work, like really wanted to, but was very, very nervous. So she spoke to Automatic, we registered her, and then we found a role working at AstraZeneca. And her passion was medical data, and this particular role was in a data science team within the oncology division, doing kind of entry-level data analytics work, which she was super excited about. They absolutely loved her background, her educational background, and met with her. They did a get to know you Teams meeting, and yeah, she basically started a couple of weeks after that and is still there, absolutely flying. And she's been promoted twice already within the role and given much more responsibility than when she started. So really a fantastic career opportunity for Georgina. So her testimonial said that she would burn out, obviously, in full-time employment after about 9 months. That was generally the time that it would take for her to burn out. And now she does 3 days a week. She knows her limits. 3 days a week is absolutely perfect for her, and she works fully remotely. So she felt like, without having to mask all day, it gives her the flexibility and the platform really to do her job to the best of her ability, basically. So a fantastic example of making those reasonable adjustments and making those changes. You can really see people fly and roll.
So as I was mentioning earlier, so with communication, don't leave things up to interpretation. So you do have to say what you mean, when you are speaking to an autistic person. So these are just some examples of where the confusion could be. If you're saying, "Can I see your ID badge?" Instead of saying, "Please, will you get," you would say, "Please, will you get your ID badge out and show me?" They're like, "Well, no, of course you can't see it. It's in my back pocket." So that's where there can be some sort of communication issues. And sometimes someone may come across as though if someone just said no, you might think that person's being rude, but it's not they're being rude. They don't understand what you're asking them. So that is the communication. There can be that confusion and issues sometimes. There's a couple of examples there. There's a couple more here. The one at the bottom is actually one that I did at the beginning. So when obviously I started registering people, I always ask, well, now I would say, what was your experience like during school or during education? Whereas I remember I said to someone once, I was like, "How did you find school?" as in the experience. And they were like, "Well, what do you mean find school? Like my mum took me, like I didn't have to look for it," type of thing. And obviously I didn't realize at the time that what I was saying doesn't actually make sense. So it's just little things like that you probably don't realize. I never realized. I always just thought someone would know what that means, but it wasn't actually grammatically correct what I was asking that person. So those are just little things to think about when speaking to an autistic individual. So what Francesca was speaking about just a minute ago, so it's what we call the AAA services. These are the roles that generally we as an organisation work on, and the reason that we do that is because some of the the autistic strengths that I discussed earlier blend, work really well in these roles. So, for example, administration, things such as CRM management and cleaning, things like good attention to detail, data entry, someone that likes repetitive, simple work. A lot of autistic individuals like that type of work. So something like data entry, doing the same thing over and over again would be really good for them. They've also got high accuracy, so it works well for those roles, works well for a lot of data positions. And the thing is, a lot of neurodivergent or a lot of autistic people, they'll enjoy that work, but once they get into it, they often perform it better than a neurotypical person would as well. So once they're into it and they've learnt the role, they may ask a lot of questions in the beginning of the role. Once they understand everything, they've often got better sort of accuracy than us, and often they will be a lot quicker at it than us, but still be extremely accurate in these roles as well. So, and then again, we do lots of automation. Again, a lot of us of those strengths work well in automation roles, software testing, software engineering as well. We have a lot of people that tech is a big interest of that. They teach themselves to code. We have a lot of people that have gone and done technical degrees, but a lot of our self-coders as well, will be extremely strong in these areas. And within AI as well, data cleaning, data labeling, pattern recognition, problem solving, attention to detail. All these strengths are really useful in that area as well.
So what next? Actionable steps, always useful. Training and awareness, obviously. Companies don't, like Gabby said at the beginning, don't just have to implement one training session. It needs to be updated in an ongoing initiative within any organisation that's trying to improve their inclusion strategy. So ongoing staff training, promoting awareness, positive, inclusive action across teams. Workplace assessments and audits, again, essential to building that improvement strategy. So taking steps to assess your current practices and identify areas for improvement to ensure a more neurodivergent friendly culture. Neurodiversity Alliance and a network. So a big growth area and something that's doing really well across organisations now are ERGs, so employee resource groups that are fully focused on building a community within a business, really, to promote EDI across large organisations, sharing best practice and providing that alliance and network, so people feel supported and they know where to go when they need support. Which also brings us into the mentorship and peer support. So again, having people within these programs that have lived experiences is hugely beneficial, and you will find that a lot of your neurodiverse employees internally will want to give back and want to provide support for their peers, and this is hugely impactful from a cultural perspective. So if anybody would like to pledge in the chat what their individual action will be, or that you will commit to as a result of today's training, feel free. I believe that is our last slide. And